He didn't ask for the moment, but when it came, he took it. One run from deep, one strike from distance, and the net snapped. Tommy Gemmell, a fullback who played like no fullback before him, tall, director, left foot like a hammer, more goals than most strikers in his era, more presence than many who wore the armband. He didn't celebrate, he just turned, walked back into position, as if it was nothing, but it wasn't. It was the equalizer in Lisbon, the goal that broke Inter Milan, the shot that lifted Celtic into history. They called them Lions, but only one of them left Europe stunned from 30 yards and didn't say a word. No shouting, no posing, just a job done, just quiet respect, the kind that never fades. Tommy Gemmell, the man who struck from the back and never once asked for applause. Subscribe if you still believe football belongs to the men who didn't chase fame, they earned it. Thomas Gemmell was born on October 16, 1943, in Cregneuk, just outside Motherwell. A Lanarkshire town built on steel and shifts, where men spoke little and boys grew up fast. There was no plan for football, just mud, pavements, and empty walls to aim at. He played like other lads, bare boots, cold mornings, nothing fancy, but his left foot was different. Even as a boy, it had weight. Not wild, just sure. He joined Coltness United as a teenager, and by 17, Celtic had seen enough. They brought him in quietly in 1961. A tall lad with long legs and a quiet stare. No fanfare, no promises. Still just a boy, but with a stride that looked older than he was. This was football before the lights, before money, before shirts carried names. Just men, a pitch, and the badge you wore without question. Tommy Gemmell didn't stand out right away. He just kept going, kept growing, and slowly, quietly, started to look like someone who belonged in bigger games than anyone around him dared to imagine. He made his first team debut for Celtic on January 5, 1963, away to Aberdeen. By the end of his career, he'd made 418 appearances for the club and scored 63 goals, a record almost unheard of for a defender in that era. He didn't take long to change how fullbacks were seen. He was over 6 feet tall, yet moved with ease down the left side. He could tackle, he could read the game. But what set him apart was how far forward he played. Tommy Gemmell didn't just support attacks, he finished them. He became Celtic's regular penalty taker. 34 scored out of 37 taken ice cold. No stutter, no flourish. Just strike and walk away. In the 1966-67 season alone, he scored 6 goals in Europe, including the most important of his life. Opponents feared him not for tricks, but for timing. He picked his moments like a striker, but returned to defend like it was duty. He once said, "I was a defender who liked to go forward. I suppose I played the game before it became fashionable." That was Tommy, a fullback who refused to stay back. Not for attention, not for glory, but because it was in him. On May 25, 1967, Celtic walked into the Estadio Nacional in Lisbon to face Inter Milan, European champions, tactically ruthless, masters of the defensive wall. It was the European Cup final, the first ever for a British club, and after just 7 minutes, Celtic went behind. A penalty. Inter 1, Celtic 0. Everything they'd built, under threat. But they didn't panic. They pressed. Wave after wave. Shots hit the post, crosses flew in, but nothing landed. Then, in the 63rd minute, the ball broke to the edge of the box. Tommy Gemmell was there. No hesitation. He struck it first time left foot, clean, rising. The net bulged. Inter's wall cracked. Celtic were level. I just hit it. It came to me sweetly. I wasn't thinking. You don't think in those moments, you act. 7 minutes from time, Stevie Chalmers made it 2-1. Celtic had done it, the first British team to win the European Cup. 11 men all born within 30 miles of Glasgow. But it was Gemmell's goal that turned the tide. Not a forward, not a flair player. A left back, stepping up when no one else could break through. That strike became one of the most iconic goals in the club's history. And Gemmell, he didn't celebrate, he just walked back to position. Job done. 3 years later, Celtic were back in the final. May 6, 1970. San Siro. European Cup final, Celtic versus Feyenoord. The pressure was different this time. They weren't the underdogs anymore. They were expected to win. And once again, it was Tommy Gemmell who struck first. In the 30th minute, he surged forward, took a pass from Wallace and lashed it into the top corner. Same foot, same power, same silence after impact. Celtic won, Feyenoord 0. But this time, it didn't end in celebration. Feyenoord equalized. Then, in extra time, they won it 2-1. No parade, no legend, just regret. It made him one of only 3 British players to score in 2 European Cup finals. The others? Phil Neal and Gareth Bale. Different eras, different styles, but the same rare mark. "You don't want to score in a final you lose," Gemmell said years later. "But I knew what it meant. I knew how few had done it." No film was made of that final, but the goal is still there, black and white, top corner, no reaction. Just Tommy, doing what he did, and walking away. In 1971, after a decade of trophies, Tommy Gemmell left Celtic. There was no fallout, no headlines, just time and change. He signed for Nottingham Forest, then playing in the English Second Division. He was 28, still strong, still feared, made 39 appearances, scored 6 goals. But it was never home. The rhythm was different, the feeling quieter. Then in 1973, he moved again, this time across the Atlantic. Miami Toros, North American Soccer League. Sun, speed, and short seasons. He played 21 games, scored once. A Scottish name in unfamiliar heat. Later that year, he returned to Scotland, signed for Dundee, settled, played with weight again, and in 1974, he led them to a surprise Scottish League Cup win, beating Celtic in the final. The final was played on December 15, 1973, at Hampden Park. Dundee won 1-0. It was his last major medal. A strange moment. Against the club where it all began, but still a trophy that mattered. He stayed until 1977, then retired from playing. No farewell match, no banners, just boots off, head down and quietly out. For all he did in Europe, Tommy Gemmell's time with Scotland never felt enough. He made his international debut on April 2, 1966, against England at Hampden. He was 22 and ready. Over the next 5 years, he earned just 18 caps, scored 1 goal a penalty against Cyprus. But for a player who had conquered Europe, that number never made sense. He wasn't dropped for form, he wasn't outplayed, he was just left out. Some blamed club politics, others said he didn't fit the system. But those who watched him knew Scotland had a weapon they barely used. In 1967, he played in one of Scotland's greatest wins, 3-2 at Wembley, just months after England had won the World Cup. That day, Scotland declared themselves unofficial world champions. Gemmell played his part, solid, fierce, unmoved by the moment. He never complained about the caps, never chased the press. That was him. A man who gave everything even when they didn't ask often enough. In his later years, Tommy Gemmell stayed close to the game, but never sought a spotlight. He managed Dundee from 1977 to 1980, guiding them back to the top division. Later had a short spell at Albion Rovers in the 1980s, then stepped away. No coaching circus, no media tour, just life. Quiet. But the silence grew heavier. In his 70s, he was diagnosed with prostate cancer. He fought it as he had played without panic, without fuss. On March 2, 2017, Tommy Gemmell passed away in Glasgow. He was 73 years old, dignified, gone. It was the same season Celtic marked the 50th anniversary of Lisbon. Celtic paid tribute instantly. A true Lisbon Lion, a legend. A man who gave so much to our club and asked for nothing. The funeral was held on March 10th, and the cortege began where it had to, Celtic Park, down Celtic Way, past the gates he once ran through. Teammates lined the route, supporters stood in silence. Probably his most famous goal was the equalizer in Lisbon, Jim Craig said. His granny could have knocked it in. Then paused. But no one else did. That was Tommy. Modest, mighty, gone. They still show the goal. Lisbon, left foot, top corner. Tommy turning away like it was nothing. But it wasn't. It was history. He played 418 games for Celtic, scored 63 goals, took the club to the summit of Europe, changed what a full-back could be. No chant that survived the decades, but his name is spoken by those who remember what mattered. He didn't sell himself. He didn't ask for recognition, but his record still speaks. His strike still lives, and his place in that 11 on that day in Lisbon is as permanent as the cup they lifted. He was finally inducted into the Scottish Football Hall of Fame, but not until 2006. No mural, no testimonial, just echoes, carried quietly by those who remembered what he'd done. While others were honored with banners, busts, and songs, Gemmell's legacy lived without noise. Not because it wasn't earned, but because he never asked. And that, maybe, is why it lasts. A marauding left-back before marauding left-backs were fashionable, they said. But Gemmell didn't care about trends. He just played the way he was built. No noise, no pose, just power and presence. Tommy Gemmell, the Lion who struck from the back and left his name in Europe's memory whether the world kept singing or not. Subscribe if you still believe football belongs to the men who didn't chase glory but delivered it.